Tusk full spoilers, here we go. So best friends Wallace, who looks like a corn director, and Teddy host a podcast where they interview eccentric people. Wallace flies to Canada to interview this boy who went viral for obliterating his leg with a katana, but once Wallace gets there, it turns out the boy unalived himself. Desperate to find someone else to interview, Wallace finds a flyer. The flyer is from someone offering a free room in their home in exchange for the guests to listen to interesting stories from them, which is just what he was looking for. Once Wallace arrives at the mansion, he meets Howard. Howard is a retired seaman in a wheelchair who tells the story of this walrus named Mr. Tusk who rescued him after a shipwreck. Howard serves Wallace some laced tea, and then Wallace just slurps and swallows that shit up and passes out. Wallace wakes up strapped to a wheelchair, unable to feel his legs. You can see Howard polishing this bone that looks like a tusk. A disoriented Wallace asks Howard what happened to him, and Howard tells him he was bitten by a poisonous spider, and that's why he can't feel his legs. Wallace takes the blanket off and realizes that one of his legs is gone. While Wallace is still immobilized at the dinner table, Howard tells him that he plans to surgically turn him into a walrus. Oh, and also this motherfucker isn't actually in a wheelchair, he can walk. Wallace gets a hold of his phone and he tries to call his girlfriend and his friends, but they ignore him because they're fucking. Teddy just understood Allie more than Wallace did. But eventually she listens to his voicemails and they fly to Canada, worried about him. Meanwhile, Wallace is being turned into a walrus. I would show the photos, but TikTok be censoring my video, so you can just Google it. The tusks of the new walrus skin that Wallace has to wear now are from his tibia bones. Meanwhile, Teddy and Allie find a detective to help them out. The eccentric detective tells the cheating pair that he believes that Wallace is no longer himself and may be turned into an animal. He's been tracking Howard for years. Howard chains Wallace, who is now a walrus, onto this platform where he plays an ocean on a projector 24/7. Howard removed Wallace's tongue so Wallace can't communicate, and even pushes Wallace into the water to force him to swim with his new fins, and Wallace almost becomes unalived. Wallace also sees multiple corpses of previous walrus-turned people under the water. Howard opens up to Wallace and tells him that he eventually had to eat Mr. Tusk when he was shipwrecked in order to survive. And now he'd like to give the new Mr. Tusk the pleasure of a second chance at survival. Howard puts on a walrus suit and then him and Wallace start fighting and touching tusks. I guess the walrus boot camp had worked because Wallace ends up unaliving Howard with his tusks. Then the detective and the two friends burst in to find Wallace victoriously celebrating, looking goofy as hell over the body of Howard. A year later, it shows Allie and Teddy visiting Wallace at a zoo, and Wallace sheds a tear as they feed him a fish. The end.